This is part 2, in which we look at how the significant life experience of being forced to leave the convent in Loreto, and that which was inspired by the catalyst of hearing the voice of Christ on the train to Darjeeling, and all the difficulties she faced for those 2 years of waiting and arguing for her new vocation, how that significant life experience affected her beliefs and how they were expressed in the other aspects of religion. So this is a before and after. We can say her beliefs before were expressed in a certain way. They went through the significant life experience, and how did that expression change afterwards? Let's have a look at some examples. So how did St. Teresa's significant life experience affect the expression of her beliefs? What about the social structure? Well, quite simply, she formed a new order called the Missionaries of Charity. She still understood her vocation, or her apostolate, as a nun, but she needed to form a new order to do the work that she was called to do. She was told that, she understood that absolute poverty and that work on the streets was incompatible with the work that the Loreto order did in India at the time, so she needed to form a new order. You can see that slight change in her vocation forms a new social structure. What about symbols? Well, she starts to wear a sari instead of a habit. So instead of a nun's habit, the black and white get-up that she used to be in. And she was told by the voice, by Christ, your sari will become holy because it will be my symbol. Now, importantly, the sari is the dress of the poor. So it was a very simple dress that was very similar to the way that the ordinary poor women would dress. So it came to symbolize her solidarity with them and Christ in them. So she was to wear the habit, I guess because it is a habit, even though it's a sari, of the imitation of the poor, because she saw Christ in the poor. You can see then that a slight shift in beliefs leads to a shift in the expression of those beliefs. Let's look at some more examples. An example from ethics. So, the poorest of the poor. She still saw herself as Christ's spouse, but she now saw service to the poor as the way to serve him. So she always had an understanding that we had a preferential option for the poor, but she now sees Christ in the poorest of the poor, and that ethic becomes central to her identity. What about her spiritual experience? She changes to be a contemplative in the heart of the world. So St. Teresa still believed she could have an intimate relationship with Christ, but now saw that one way to do that was to meet him in the distressing disguise of the poor. So this idea of a contemplative, that's one who prays. And in the tradition of the church, normally contemplatives are separate from the world in a cloister and pray most of the day. But she says, I'm a contemplative in the heart of the world, because she goes to meet Jesus in the poorest of the poor. And here is a picture of her meeting Jesus in the distressing disguise of the poorest of the poor. And you can see there in that wonderful picture her understanding, again, of that spiritual experience, in the spiritual experience of meeting the poorest of the poor. So that becomes a spiritual experience where it maybe prior to that was an ethic or a service. So you can see here how the way that she expresses her beliefs has changed as a result of her significant life experience.